What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Inside Inter Miami, the Miami Herald show about your favorite soccer club. I'm Andre Fernandez, your host, joined once again by our Inter Miami beat writer, Michelle Kaufman. Lots to talk about as usual this week, and most of it, Messi Mania. After what he did, we know the New England game really didn't mean anything in the standings. It meant something to make history, a big milestone. But again, another Messi moment, several packed into one in a short amount of time. He gets a hat trick in just 11 minutes to blow out New England and finish the regular season on a high note. So we'll look at that. And we'll look at Messi Mania off the field, the big marketing push that's going into overdrive. Michelle wrote a nice story about all that. That's available at MiamiHerald.com if you want to check it out. And then we'll have several other topics, including Luis Suarez, who continues to look younger than he is on the field. And we'll talk about, of course, the big playoff match coming up on Friday night as Miami and Lionel Messi make their playoff debut together in that game. We'll have some interviews from Inter Miami players. We'll talk a little bit about the feature Michelle wrote about the pitch invaders that we mentioned a couple weeks ago. And, of course, did Messi lock up MVP? Should Tata win Coach of the Year? All those topics and more. But let's start with Messi Mania, Michelle, because, again, just when you think you've seen amazing things from this man, he comes up with something new to thrill everybody. How did he get a hat trick in 11 minutes and coming off the bench?
It's unbelievable. I mean, every time I think I've seen it all from this guy, which was just a few days prior, he had a hat trick for Argentina. He had a hat trick and 2 assists for Argentina against Bolivia. And it was like, wow, he's looking really strong coming back to Inter Miami with a hat trick in a World Cup qualifier at his age. 5 days later, he one-ups himself. A hat trick in 11 minutes. He was on the bench. The team was struggling. At the beginning of the game, they gave up a goal, which is something that if they do this in the playoffs, it's gonna be more difficult. They gave up a goal in the second minute. Okay. I think David Martinez was a little bit rusty, just coming back from an injury. He got beat behind. Suarez actually gave up the ball in the middle of the field. That got that play started. So they're down 1-0 in the second minute. Then they go down 2-0. And it's like, uh-oh, what's happening? Meanwhile, Messi's sitting on the bench resting. Everybody else started, but they rested Messi and Diego Gomez, who had played national team. Then Suarez, El Pistolero. Again, another 37-year-old man who has turned back the clock. Looks like he's so much younger than he is, the way he's playing. Scores 2 goals to end the second half to equalize and take them into halftime, tied 2-2. So all of a sudden, they're back in the game. Suarez has got them back in the game. And then Messi comes in the 57th minute. The whole place goes insane. Everybody's chanting, Messi, 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 Messi. Everyone was dying to see him. In fact, when he came onto the field to warm up and he was over in the corner, running around in the corner, the fans were not even watching the game. The fans were watching the corner. Everyone was watching the corner and taking pictures of Messi. And then he comes in on his very first touch. He literally comes onto the field. The first time his foot touches the ball, it's a little curling pass to Alba, who then gives it to Kremaski, who scores. So he basically, gets basically a second assist on that goal in his very first touch. A few minutes later, scores a spectacular goal, another one, and then another one. The last one was off an incredibly acrobatic assist from Luis Suarez. If you guys have not seen the replays of these 3 goals of Messi, you got to just Google it and go look at the replays, because it's unbelievable what he does in the span of 11 minutes. Scores 3 goals. We were joking in the press box. We were joking when he came in. We're like, watch him get a hat trick now and win the game, because it was 2-2. We were saying, watch Messi come in here, score a hat trick, win the game, and it would be a storybook. Well, they end up winning 6-2. Forget about 3-2. They end up winning 6-2. But what Messi did was incredible. I mean, it was just unbelievable. Uh, you know, what he can still
He,
do at this age. It's remarkable.
he's the definition of I can roll out of bed and kick your you know what, like we always
Oh,
joke
and he
about
hadn't
athletes
warmed
that are
up.
that good.
Yeah, by the way, my husband was in the stands and he texted me before the game and said, Messi's not out there in the warm-ups. Is that normal? And then I said, yeah, sometimes he doesn't warm up. And then even for the warm-up for the second half, he wasn't out there either. So by the way, the man did not warm up for that game,
Yeah,
other than the
literally
little
roll out
running
of bed
around in the
and
corner.
kick some,
Rolls out of bed, goes over the corner, jogs around a couple little laps around the flag, and the next thing you know, he's having a hat trick, following up a hat trick 5
right.
days later. By the way, with those 3 goals, he increased his season total to 20 goals and 16 assists in 19 games. He only played 19 games for this team. He missed 15 of the games. He scored 20 goals and 16 assists, 36 goal contributions. The man
Just
it's
yeah.
unbelievable.
That's for people who out there maybe that don't watch as much. That's like imagine if like Patrick Mahomes had 40 touchdown passes in like 8 or 9 games in only like half a season, something like it. It's just unbelievable what he's been able to do in such a short time. I mean, it speaks to his talent. Some would say maybe it speaks to where he's playing, but either way, has he locked up MVP?
Well, I mean, I think with his performance the other day, when you look at the totality of his numbers, I think he's MVP. I mean, nobody else. He has more goal contributions than anybody in the league. 36 goal contributions is more than anybody in the league, and he's done it in fewer games. Now, Cucho Hernandez from Columbus Crew, he certainly has had an amazing year and has similar numbers, but not as good. I believe 33 total, but had a full season. He did not only play 19 games. And by the way, when they played head to head in this last game that really mattered a lot, Inter Miami won that game up there. So Cucho Hernandez definitely, if the thing about MVP is the award, and this is really in the mind of the voter, but is the award the most valuable player in the league and for the league? League wide, there is no question. I mean, there is no question that there's no one who means more to this league right now than Lionel Messi on and
Well,
off the field, which we're going to talk
I
about.
mean, if you're going to give that, if you're going to give it based on that, he might as well have given it to him when he signed his contract. I mean,
Exactly.
with
Yeah. I mean, no one means more to this league than Lionel Messi in every respect, in attendance, in
everything.
TV viewership, in jersey sales, and then on the field, the way he and his friends that he brought. Because by the way, if he wasn't here,
Oh
Busquets
no,
wouldn't be here,
yeah,
and Alba wouldn't be here, and Suarez wouldn't be here. So you would not have any of those 4 if the goat was not here. His little friends would
exactly.
not have come either. So
Mhm.
the impact that he's had on this league is immeasurable and unmatched. And then you mix in his numbers on the field this season. Last season, no, he was not the MVP last season because the team didn't even make the playoffs, and he only even started playing in July and missed even more games than he missed this year. But this year, in a full season, to get 20 goals and 16 assists in 19 games is remarkable. And yes, Cucho Hernandez absolutely has a case, and Bouanga has a case also. Dennis Bouanga from the LA Galaxy, very good numbers. Christian Benteke won the Golden Boot, but nobody has the total goal contributions that Messi has in the short amount of games. Now, some people would say the MVP should go to the player who means the most to his team, and that the team cannot win without that player. In your opinion, under that definition, is he the MVP of Inter Miami? What's your answer to that?
I think he is. I think I mean, yes, I know this team for a while managed without him, with Suarez and others contributing, but there's something about doing that during the regular season. And I think what we're about to see over the next month or so in tight situations in either in a tournament or a playoff, the way this is, knock on wood, as long as he stays healthy, I think we're in for some more big performances. And I think without him, we're going to look at this a month from now and look back if they win the MLS Cup and say that doesn't happen without him. I'm sorry. Like, I just feel like that the value you're going to see even more now on the field. We've seen the value off the field these last few months and on the field, of course, with what he's done. But I think now it's all about soccer, and you're going to see the greatness kind of kick up a notch because now it means more.
Yeah, and he's in really good shape now again. It seems like he has shaken off, it took him a while to come back from that injury. Even though he came back, he missed 2 months and he missed 2.5 months, almost 3 months with this team that he didn't play. So he's back in a groove with his Inter Miami teammates. He's back in a rhythm with them again, back in a rhythm with Boosie and Albi and Suarez and all these guys.
The whole game.
Alba,
Yep.
the gang is back together. The telepathy is going again.
They're making great music together again.
They're making great music. The Beatles, they're making more hits. They're back in the studio, and they're making more hits, and it's right in the nick of time because now comes the playoffs. But yeah, as far as the MVP, I'm sure Cucho Hernandez will get votes from people. I mean, there are the haters out there. There are a lot of people who hate this team, by the way, around the league. They're just sick of him. They're sick of Messi. They're sick of Pink. They're sick of, fans of other teams.
People hating on other teams like that? No, never.
You know what I mean? But, the league so much promotes and markets this team and Lionel Messi.
Miami as a city is used to the haters. Come
Miami is a city. University of Miami, Dolphins, whatever.
Heat,
the
all that.
Team that does well. The Dolphins, they haven't done so well in a long time. But
yeah.
But the Heat, when the Heat was hot with the big three, and with the University of Miami when they were winning all the national titles.
Yep.
And just Miami in general, like when you're on an airplane and you say you're from Miami, they're like, oh, how do you live there? Whatever. So, Miami is this glamour city that's in your face. We are in your face. You either love Miami or you hate Miami. I don't really know too many people that are sort of ambivalent about Miami, like, right. I don't really have deep feelings about Miami. People either love Miami. You either love Miami as a city and think it's great. It's brash, it's loud, it's colorful, it's in your face. And you either love that or you hate it. And this team jumps right in with that. Ever since Messi arrived and all his friends and David Beckham and everything else, this is the glamour team. Let's put it that way.
Oh, yeah.
This is the glamour team. The Columbus Crew is the Midwestern hardworking team with an amazing coach and really good players who do not get the attention that they deserve by the media and around the league. But they are a great team. They're the defending champions. They won the League's Cup. They went farther in Champions Cup. And yet the other day, and I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but I do think this is a good time. And then we're gonna circle back for a minute to the MVP. Yeah. But when we're talking about hating on Inter Miami, there are a lot of people hating on Inter Miami right now because Gianni Infantino, the president of FIFA, shows up at the game the other day and announces in the big celebration after, among the fireworks and the confetti and the pink smoke, that Inter Miami, as predicted on this very show by Andre and myself, that,
World Cup.
Inter Miami won the Supporters Cup, the Supporters Shield. I wonder what the criteria is going to be for the Club World Cup next summer. Voila.
Having Messi.
Messi is the criteria.
Having Messi.
Let's admit it.
That's it.
Having Messi is the criteria. But they had to justify it. To justify it. Let's admit it. So, yes, this is the best team in MLS. They just, by the way, 74 points. By winning that game, they did break There's so many things to talk about. We're bouncing around. They did break the points record. They broke the points record with 74 points. No team in history of the league has had a better season. So they do justify in that sense. This team right now is the best team in MLS, had the best season. Anyway, had the best regular season in MLS. It remains to be seen what's going to happen in the playoffs. But they did have the best season. They had a record-breaking season with 74 points. You know, they're an amazing team. And yeah, are they going to look out of place in the Club World Cup? No. You've got 4 players from Barcelona on this team. You have a team that just set the league record. This is an outstanding team. But they didn't announce in advance that the criteria for Club World Cup was going to be the winner of the Supporter Shield. If they had announced that back in June, that the winner of the Supporter Shield is going to get the final spot for the Club World Cup in the United States next summer, then fine. Miami wins the Supporter Shield and the criteria was set and they achieve it, and that's fine. The argument is that what about Columbus? Columbus could potentially be a 2-time defending champion of this league and won Leagues Cup this year and went farther than Miami in CONCACAF Champions Cup. And yet it's going to be Inter Miami / Messi in the Club World Cup, not only in it, in the opening game. FIFA announced, Gianni Infantino also announces amid the fireworks and the confetti that the opening game of the Club World Cup is going to be in Miami at Hard Rock Stadium with Inter Miami opening the tournament. So if you're the Columbus Crew or fans of the Columbus Crew, what are you thinking? And do you think, Andre, that that's fair?
I'm thinking I can't wait for round 3 if I'm Columbus. And I'm thinking, let's take care of business. Let's get that rematch. And we're try to stick it to them. But I think that's what's on Columbus's mind. Is it fair? No, but it's the world. It's the sports world we live in. And like I've said before, money talks, celebrity talks. And I think if they can, they have the concrete milestones now to back it up. They're the greatest regular season team in MLS history, but you've also got the star status. And I think that combo right there, but we got a lot to cover on this show, but let's see. You talked to a few of the players, and with MVP, Julian Gressel
with MVP. Right, with the argument about who deserves MVP.
Right.
Is it Cucho? Is it Messi? Here's what Julian Gressel had to say about his teammate Lionel Messi after that game.
Yeah, but we won the Supporter Shield, so it was really a game of kind of almost like a tune-up for the playoffs in a way. That's kind of how I approached it, and I knew that if we're going to play our game, that we were going to win the game, and ultimately we made it tough on ourselves once again, and that's kind of been a theme at times, and things like that we have to take care of, I think, for the playoffs. But ultimately, a big night of celebration and just a good way to finish the regular season, and be ready now for what's to come.
A hat trick off the bench from Messi. What do you think of his performance today as he suits up for the playoffs?
Yeah, it was my magic touch that I gave him when I subbed off for him. No, but it's incredible. Incredible to see as a teammate and kind of what he does now. Back-to-back hat tricks. I think it was his first hat trick here, he said. So that was nice, and hopefully we got a few more in him for the playoffs.
It's not just about the stats; it's also the quality of the moves, the way he's taking them. Are you still impressed?
Yeah, of course you're impressed. You stand up on the bench and you just clap it, and you just give him a standing ovation, almost. So it's definitely, those moments are, they're all moments, even for me. And when he does it in training, it's just as impressive as when he does it now, obviously in games. And like I said, we're fortunate to be living here and seeing him play here.
On that note, would you call Messi the MVP candidate for the league, despite the few appearances, of the 19 appearances total? Would you think he's the favorite for the award, or deserved at least?
If I could vote for him, I would have voted for him, yes, because for me, the MVP stands for the best player in the league, and Leo is that by far. There's other people out there that have the definition of an MVP that maybe makes the team better, or that a team can't live without, in a sense. And to me, Leo is that too. So, you see it today. He comes in and scores the hat trick, So it's for me. He's my MVP.
There you go. He's his MVP. He's his MVP.
I think for a lot of people, he will be, and he's an MVP to the league, like we said before, not just on the field but off the field. And you wrote a little bit about that this week, Michelle. They have kicked this thing into overdrive. I mean, with a cologne, an action figure, sneakers, you name it. Everything is going into overdrive now that we're getting to the playoffs. But talk a little bit about that, Michelle. Let us know what we have examples to show people on all this Messi mania.
Yeah, I mean, it's just he is a walking billboard, a walking ATM machine, name it. The guy is a money maker. He's a money maker for anything he touches turns to gold. He's like Midas, anything he touches turns to money. In the past few weeks, he has launched a cologne. He's launched an Adidas signature sneaker with Bad Bunny. In connection with Bad Bunny, they have a co-sneaker together. There's a cologne out, a Messi cologne. The TikTok, there's a TikTok cam, we're calling it, which is that on the game on Friday, there's going to be a live stream on TikTok of the game where the whole game will be from Messi's standpoint. As if you are Lionel Messi, you're going to see the game from Messi's standpoint. And then on Tuesday night, I have the action figure here, and we have some pictures of the action figure. And Hard Rock International launched a Messi. It's called Captain Messi. And you know how he loves the superheroes and he does the superhero celebrations. So now there's Captain Messi. And Captain Messi is there he is. There's Captain Messi.
There it is. Like one of the Avengers.
There he is. One of the Avengers. So he is Captain Messi, and they're going to have these little action figures are going to be for free for kids who buy or who parents buy the kids meal. If you go to any Hard Rock Cafe around the world, all over the world, I think 70, 80 countries, whatever it is that Hard Rock is in. If you go to any Hard Rock Cafe around the world and get a kids meal while supplies last, kids will get the action figure in their kids meal. And then in addition to that, of course, I said everything he touches turns to gold. They're also selling lunch boxes, Captain Messi lunch boxes, Captain Messi backpacks, Captain Messi thermoses, Captain Messi, everything you could imagine, and t-shirts and so on. So there's going to be a whole merchandise line for Captain Messi. That's separate from the pink number 10 Adidas jersey, which, by the way, is the top selling jersey in the world right now by Adidas, not just in MLS. The top selling jersey in the world is the pink Inter Miami number 10. Now he's got this. He's got the cologne. He has, Lay's potato chips. He's got the Michelob Ultra beer. I mean, the guy is everywhere. And so much so, this is such a big deal to MLS. He is such a big deal, MVP to MLS, that Friday night's game is going to be broadcast live in Times Square. The entire game is going to be shown on a screen that is a full block of Broadway, a full block between 55th and 56th, I think. It's this mega Monstertron screen that they have that takes up a full block. It's the largest screen. Humongous screen that takes the entire block of Times Square. You'll be able to stand there in the middle of Times Square and watch the entire match between Inter Miami and Atlanta.
Nice patch there in Times Square. It's going to look a little bit like New Year's Eve with everybody just looking up at the screen instead of
looking up at the screen. Exactly. And maybe they'll put the ball will be in pink, or the Empire State Building will be in pink, or whatever. I mean, Messi just has that kind of impact. And the event last night, I have a clip from the event last night, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about that after the clip. Let's watch the clip from Messi's surprise arrival to the kids who were there last night.
We're happy to introduce superhero Captain Messi! Somebody stand up! Somebody scream!
compartir este ratito con ustedes, así que nada, muy feliz de estar acá, espero que lo pasen bien ustedes también y que podamos disfrutar de este momento.
So there he is, as usual, not saying much.
Yeah,
The usual
yeah.
thing that he says.
I know.
He always
It was
says,
like
I'm happy to be here.
after
Wherever he is.
Hey, after all that looked like a WWE wrestler's entrance, you know, like with the whole thing, and all of a sudden it's just like with his hands in his pockets, like, hey, what's up?
Yeah,
Hi, guys.
exactly. And that's who he is, to be
Yeah.
honest. It's kind of funny in a way that it's interesting in a way. This guy who is so overly marketed, like we're talking about, he's everywhere. He is everywhere. And they made this huge production. I mean, even the press credential that I got for going to this event, check it out. They even had his picture, you know, on the press credential. I don't know if you can see it, but anyway, there it is.
Yeah.
So there he is.
With the action
So
figure.
the action figure. So he's so heavily marketed. He's so incredibly famous. He has 500 million Instagram followers. That's 500 million people. 500 million people follow this guy on Instagram. And yet, when he talks, he doesn't really say that much. He speaks on the field. He speaks with what he does on the field. Off the field, he always says the same thing, which is basically, I'm happy to be here, wherever that may be. No matter where it is, he's happy to be there. And he hopes everyone has a good time.
Yeah.
So everywhere he goes, whether it's a celebration of a
knows the script.
championship, whether it's the script is, hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. I'm happy to be here. I hope you have a good time.
It's like
And he
it's like
always
the
is a
rock
little
stars. The rock
uncomfortable.
stars. Hello, Cleveland, or wherever we're at. Like, don't mess up the city name, and you're good. That's all you need.
And you're good. That's it. And what is he going to say, really? I mean, he does his talking on the field. The reason that he's famous is not for anything he does off the field. It's really what he does on the field. He's not some really colorful figure. He's not a controversial figure. He's not, you know, he's not like David Beckham, that's a big fashion icon or, you know, sex symbol or whatever. He is just the best player of all time in the minds of a lot of people. And the way he plays and the humility with which he plays, and his longevity, 37 years old, to be scoring back-to-back hat tricks, that's what makes him famous. So anyway, it was fun to see. And I will tell you one little other behind the scenes about that event last night. Afterward, this was not scripted, this part. He offered, there were 50 kids there that were from different charities and organizations, community organizations, that were invited guests. He offered, I don't believe that this was in the script, I checked, he offered to sign the shirts, the t-shirts of all the 50 kids. And each kid, one by one, they said to the kids, if you behave and if you line up properly and don't push and no selfies, but if you line up properly in orderly fashion, Lionel Messi will sign your shirt. And those kids, they stood up and they behaved. Let me tell you, those kids were standing in a little line perfectly. And they walked up to him and he signed the back. He signed every kid's shirt and said a few words to them, spoke to them more than he has spoken to me, to be honest, in the last year. He loves kids. He really is more comfortable. He's more comfortable just talking to kids and enjoys, to be honest, he enjoys kids. He loves kids. That's one of the reasons he loves this little action figure thing. He really likes engaging with kids and he likes pleasing kids who are fans of his, as opposed to dealing with adults, and particularly us in the media, even those of us that are nice. I don't think it's he dislikes us, but he just doesn't enjoy that part of his job as much as he enjoys engaging with kids.
Kids are not going to be asked.
They're not going to be asking
about his ankle and how
tough
he feels
questions
and how he's going
or
to
about his
games
ankle
and things like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, but
they're not going to ask him
talk
when is he going to retire.
on that note about right. On that note, another guy who people are talking about when is he going to retire, which he already has from international play, but he keeps playing like one of the greatest ever, which he is Luis Suarez, and he's in contract talks to potentially come back for one more season. So
yes,
do we get a Pistolero one more year?
Yes, I think you're going to get a Pistolero one more year. I mean, I've talked to sources within the club who also confirmed they are in talks with his attorneys, with his agent, his representatives, and he wants to come back. He said, absolutely. He said, if it were up to me, in his words, encantado de la vida. like delighted with life. I would be thrilled, basically. I would be thrilled to come back next year. So he wants to come back next year. And he said right now it's up to the club and they are in talks. So we'll leave it at that for now because we have a couple more things we want to cover and we don't want to run out of time. But I think we are going to see more of the Pistolero next year. Why would he leave? If the other three are, fourth Beatle has to be here.
Why not? Right. You got to keep the band together for sure. And
Yeah.
the band will be together. And let's get to what people want to hear about this Friday night. The series kicks off with Atlanta United. That's the team that Inter Miami will be facing. I guess they won a thriller in PKs to knock out Montreal in the play-in game on Tuesday night to set this up. Michelle, tell us about this matchup. You know, how does it start? And different too, because from here on, if Inter Miami gets past this round, it's single elimination. But in this round, it's a series.
In this round, it's the best 2 out of 3. So they have to win 2 games. The first game is Friday night at home at 8:30. And this is an interesting matchup. They've played Atlanta twice this year. And guess what? Guess how many wins they have against Atlanta in those 2 games? 0. They lost. Yes. This is they only have 4. Miami only has 4 losses in 34 games this year. 4 losses in 34 games. Okay. One of those losses was to Atlanta. It was in May. By the way, it was Miami's last home loss. Miami's last home loss was way back in May to Atlanta United. And by the way, that Atlanta United was not good at that time. They were going through a horrible stretch. I think they had gone 9 games without winning a game or something like that. And they came into Chase Stadium with Messi in the game, and they won 3-1. Messi did score in that game. Messi had the 1 goal. Here we go. Messi MVP, but he did have the 1 goal in the game. But they lost 3-1 to Atlanta in that game, okay? Then in September, they played again up in Atlanta, and they tied that game 2-2. Now, there is some background on that game. I don't know if you guys remember. Some of the games sometimes blend together. It's been a month, but that game, almost the entire starting lineup started the game on the bench. Tata played a very, patchwork lineup. There were only 3 regular starters who started that game: Drake Callender, Cello Wigan, and Gressel. That's it. Everyone else. Messi was on the bench. Suarez was on the bench. Alba was on the bench. Busquets was suspended. Tata was suspended from that game for yellow cards. Tata was up in the watching from a suite that game. Aviles was out. Gomez was out injured. So Aviles was out, of course, with yellow cards. So anyway, that was a game that Miami was not, with 8 of their 11 starters, did not start that game. They ended up tying. The starters did come in later. They ended up tying the game 2-2. But it was a tie. At the end of the day, they've played Atlanta twice this year, lost 1 game 3-1, tied a game 2-2. Now this series is they have to win 2 out of 3. So far in 2 out of 2, they have 0 wins. So they're going to be highly, highly motivated to win this game, to win this series, because they have not beaten Atlanta yet this year. They've beaten everyone else, but they have not beaten Atlanta this year.
Yeah, and some in a short window like this, a short series, a little bit of pressure Friday night to get that one at home and not go back 0-1 to Atlanta, which we know is one of the tougher environments in the MLS to play a game at.
Absolutely. At Atlanta, the Mercedes-Benz Stadium will be, I guarantee you, will be sold out, because that team was in 9th. They got the last playoff spot. They squeaked in to get the final playoff spot over DC. They were not even expected to be in the playoffs. They're making a late run. They're one of these teams they're on a real high right now. I watched their coach's post-game, and he was like, they are really on a high right now. They squeak into the playoffs. They beat Montreal up there in Montreal, beat them in a penalty kick shootout. They are fired up. They are wound up. They're fired up. They're coming down here. They know that Miami has not beaten them this year, so they are highly motivated. And when they play in Atlanta, game 2, which is November 2nd, at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, It's going to be on turf. Okay. It's on turf, and it's going to be in front of probably, 65,000 people. So it's going to be a huge crowd of 65,000 people. It's going to be on turf. They're going to be highly motivated. This is Tata's old team. This
Yep.
is the team that he won the MLS Cup with. Tata has very deep connections with this team. So this is a really interesting first round series.
Definitely. And for people that don't know, Friday, the first one in Miami, like Michelle said, November 2nd would be in Atlanta, game 2. And if there's a game 3, November 9th, back in Miami. And if I read the bracket correctly, free on Apple, right? You don't even have to have the subscription to watch this series.
Free. Opening game is free on Apple. Opening game is free on Apple this Friday.
Just the
By
opening
the way,
game or the whole series? Just the opening game?
No, opening game. Opening
Okay.
game is free on Apple. Opening
Got it.
game is free on Apple. And
Yeah.
I asked Drake Callender, by the way, we have video. I asked Drake Callender, well, you'll see, but I asked him, the game the other day, it seemed like a celebration of winning the whole thing, the way they were celebrating that supporter shield. And I said, now comes the playoffs. What's the team's mentality right now? Here's what he said.
Drake, the ceremony the other night, I mean, it looked and felt like a championship ceremony. I mean, you were raising supporter shield, but, fireworks, confetti, everything. I mean, it felt like that was a championship ceremony. Now you have the playoffs. How is the team's mentality like as far as will the season still be something to be celebrated that much if you guys don't go all the way and raise the actual cup?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, winning the supporter shield shows a lot about how we did throughout the regular season, the consistency, 4 losses, 8 ties,
22, I think, 22 wins.
22 wins. I think that's a pretty good track record, plus the points record. It's something to be proud of, but again, it's still not over, and there's still another opportunity to lift another trophy and compete. So I think, yeah, it's great. I think it's great for the club. I think we're on a forward trajectory, and we're just kind of viewing these playoffs as another opportunity to get another trophy and to prove why we got the supporter shield. I think it's one thing to get it, but then to go into playoffs where it's playoff format, elimination games, more pressure, probably more competitive. I think, again, it's the place you want to be, in this league's in the playoffs. And that's where we are. So we're just going to do our best to win games. Some of you.
Yeah, and if they could pull it off, we've talked about MVP and we've talked about Coach of the Year, but again, does Tata Martino deserve it or not? I know you spoke to Noah Allen about it, right? And he gave kind of his thoughts on why Tata should be considered. Let's see what Noah Allen had to say.
I've learned so much personally from him. He's the best coach I've had so far in my career, and I'm grateful for him. But yeah, I think he deserves it. I mean, Wilfred Nancy is a really good coach as well. I will give him respect and props for that. But what he's done compared to last year, obviously he came in mid last year, and things were kind of difficult. But this year he's given us a platform to really use, giving us his tools, and we really use it. I would definitely vote for him as coach of the year.
If one thing, some people say, well, Wilfred Nancy has the edge because he doesn't have all the superstars on his team and he's winning without these guys. Tata's winning with these guys. What would you say to that argument?
I would say that Coach Tata has had to change a lot of formations throughout the whole year. There's been a lot of injuries, not only to like Leo and Lucho and Jordi and Busi, but they've gone on international breaks while we're in season. He's had to handle that. He's also had to handle pressure from the media and for example. So I think, in my opinion, what he's done, especially with the rotations and the tactical setup, that's why I would give him that.
It reminds me, yeah.
He makes a point about there is more pressure on Tata. Wilfred Nancy, whether he wins or doesn't win, everyone around the world isn't going to be talking about it. Again, I'm not saying that's fair, but that's reality. Whether Columbus Crew wins or doesn't win, the whole world isn't going to be piping in on that. With this team, yes, because there are fans all over the world, as we know, because people watching this show are from all over the world, and the coverage that this team gets all over Europe, all over Asia, Africa, everywhere, the Middle East. I mean, so everyone is watching this team, and expecting this team to win. And that is pressure on Tata. And yes, he did have to make rotations because they had players missing. Wilfred Nancy has had basically the same lineup all season, pretty much. There's some changes here and there, but Tata has had to go stretches where he didn't have his best players who are on national team duty. And then Messi misses 2.5 months. So he's had to deal with a lot and a lot of pressure, starting with that crazy international tour. It seems like it was 5 years ago. It was the beginning of this season,
right,
when they went to play all over the place.
All over the place, yeah.
They did a 5-country preseason tour that did not go that well.
No.
And that's how Tata had to kick off this season
With
the
fan
guys fired in the
protests
midst of
and
fan protests
all
and
kinds of
injuries,
stuff.
and in the
Yep.
middle of all kinds of stuff happening. And he had to deal with all that. And he's had to blend a bunch of kids like Noah Allen and Kramaski and Yannick Bright and Ian Frey. These are young guys from academy level in college, blending them with Barcelona superstars. That's not that easy to do for a coach. So I think that is the argument for Tata that Noah Allen was talking about.
It kind of reminds me, and I know you know Michelle from your days in Detroit. You mentioned Chuck Daly a few weeks ago when you were talking about that, but I think it's like Phil Jackson. Remember when nobody wanted to give Phil Jackson Coach of the Year? It's like, oh, whatever. You have Kobe and Shaq,
Yeah,
and then
he's
before
got
that,
all the stars.
whatever. You've got Jordan and Pippen. Well, guess what? If Jordan would have gone down for 2-3 months, and then Pippen would have gone down in a few spots here and there, do you want to? I would have loved to have seen him win, 60 games or whatever with Will Perdue and B.J. Armstrong and all those guys. It's kind of, in a way, at times, what they've had to do here, where they've had to mix and match, some guys in the lineup, some not. And you're Michael Jordan out. You're LeBron James being out. You're Kobe, whoever, being out for an extended amount of time. Granted, when he's in, he's special. But for a long patch of this season, he was not in. And not only did they finish in first place and win the Supporter Shield, they made history and are now the greatest regular season team in MLS history. So now it just remains to be seen if they can do it in the playoffs.
If you want to go by numbers, he only played in 56% of the games. Okay. Right. 56%.
And some of those he didn't start.
Almost half. And some of those did not start. So you're talking about he played about half of this season. Right. And still achieved more in half the season than the top players in the league achieved in the entire season. So, what Tata has had to do to manage all of that is pretty good. It's very commendable. Very, very commendable.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens in the playoffs.
Yeah. Now that's
going up against the team that he won MLS Cup with.
Right. And that's the big question now. Does it carry over? But Michelle and I will be back next week to talk about game 1 of this mini series with Atlanta. We'll show you the action figure. If they win, Michelle will probably bring the action figure back. I'm sure there'll be mate in the future down the road at some point. We're not going to do it too much. We want to make it special occasions. But we're in the playoffs now, and this show will be back inside Inter Miami. Thanks for watching, as always, on MiamiHerald.com. Remember, you can also catch us on YouTube and listen to us on Spotify or any of your favorite podcatchers. But until then, for Michelle Kaufman, I'm Andre Fernandez. Thanks for watching, and enjoy the weekend, everybody.